Hello students, this is Dr. Kavita Devani Joshi and today we are going to study our same chapter which we had started in the last class and we were talking about neural control and coordination, right? So when we talk about this chapter, so we have already completed one part of it, that is about neuron, right? So we studied the structure of neuron and about types of neurons. All these things we have already discussed, and then about synapse, right? So today we are going to move ahead and our today's topics will be CNS and PNS, right? So when we talk about CNS, that means we are talking about central nervous system, and when we talk about PNS, so that means we are talking about PNS, that is peripheral nervous system, okay? But before that we need to understand that how exactly and into what components our nervous system is divided, okay? So let us do that. So I am writing over here first of all the whole division of it, nervous system, right? And when we talk about this nervous system, it is divided into two major parts, right? So these two major parts consist of CNS and PNS, okay? So I can write over here CNS as you can see, and then we have central nervous system as its full form, okay? Central nervous system. And then when we talk about the another component of it, so we can call it PNS, that is peripheral nervous system, okay? So here I can write central nervous system, central nervous system, okay? And similarly into the another component of it, I can write PNS, that is peripheral nervous system, okay? So we can write over here peripheral nervous system. So when we talk about CNS or central nervous system, it means that it is present on the along the longitudinal axis of the body, because the term central, it is having this meaning only. So basically in the central part, it must be having in the central part like this. And when we talk about the peripheral nervous system, it must be present at the peripheries, that means sides, that means around the central nervous system. And CNS is again divided into two components. We can pick another color so that you will be able to learn it in a better way, because whenever we see any kind of flow charts, any kind of images or diagrams that help us to learn the things in an easy and better way, and better memorize, we are able to memorize them in a better way. So the two components of central nervous system are brain and spinal cord, and then when you talk about PNS is divided into somatic and autonomic nervous system. So we can divide it into two components again, that can be named as your somatic and autonomic nervous system, okay? So here I can write somatic always has come from, derived from soma, that means body, and then on the other end I can take the name of autonomic nervous system. And you have to remember that autonomic nervous system will again be divided into two components, and those two components will be sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, like this. So we can subdivide them into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, okay? So I can write over here sympathetic and here parasympathetic, okay? So these are the two components of autonomic nervous system, right? And when we talk about the further divisions of brain has a different classification overall. This is a very basic classification of nervous system which you can see, and you're just writing the names till now, but we are going to pick each and every component today and we will be talking about that. But before moving ahead with any other component, we are going to start with CNS, and first heading which I am going to write is your CNS, that is your central nervous system. So CNS is itself considered as the site of processing of information, because whatever information goes it goes into this CNS, and it is considered as the site of processing of information, and from there the other actions are done with the help of different neurons. So this is one thing, and when we talk about its first component, which we are going to do now, and that component will be brain. And you can classify brain as well. So how is it classified? Let's see that. I am writing the whole classification in a different flowchart, because there we didn't have space. It has a it itself has a huge classification, you can say. So it is divided into three parts. So we have forebrain, we have midbrain, and we have hindbrain. So first of all, let us divide it into these three components like this. Okay, so first name which I am writing is forebrain, and forebrain can also be called by one more name, that is prosencephalon. You have to remember that encephalon, this term encephalon, it means brain only. Then we have midbrain. So like this we can write midbrain, and midbrain is also called by one more name, and that name is mesencephalon. Mesencephalon, right? Again, encephalon means brain. If you wanna write it like this, we can write like this also. And then we have the third component of brain, and that component is hindbrain. And hindbrain is also called by one more name, that is your rhombencephalon. Rhombencephalon. I know these terms are pretty having big names they are, and a bit tough spellings also they are, but you are able to see that every term has a word, has a term encephalon as a suffix to it, and that is itself representing brain. So when you will be studying forebrain, no? So in case of forebrain, you have to study two components, and those two components are named as, one is diencephalon, okay, and another component can be called as telencephalon, okay. And when we talk about diencephalon, so di means two, and that itself says that it must be having two components, and those two components are called as, one will be thalamus and another will be called as hypothalamus. So we can write here thalamus, and the another component can be called as hypothalamus, okay, hypothalamus, right? And then when we talk about the telencephalon part, so what I'm doing is I'm going more down to it, because again otherwise they will get mixed, all the names will get mixed. So what we have done is we are making it a bit downwards like this, okay. So now these three, now it has again many components. Like one component is called as cerebral cortex, then another component will be called as corpus striatum. First of all, just right now you just have to be familiar with certain terms, okay, and rest all will be covered slowly and gradually. So corpus striatum, and one more component it has, that component is known as amygdala, and the last component will be called as hippocampus, okay. So what they do, how they work, everything will be discussed in the further part. But then when we talk about this mesencephalon, so it also is divided into two components, and those two components can be called as, first is four-lobed corpora quadrigemina or quadrigemina. Corpora means body. Corpora has derived from the term corpus only. Corpus is the singular term and corpora is the plural term, and quad means four, okay. And here crura cerebri, and you have to remember crura cerebri are just bundles of nerve fibers. And then when we divide this hindbrain into three components, these three components will include your pons veruli. The complete name of pons is pons veruli. You have to remember, many people do not know this thing. Many students, they just know only single term pons, but this is its complete name. Then we have medulla oblongata, okay, and the last component will be cerebellum, okay, like this. So we are lagging space over here, so let's do one thing. cere okay, and here I'm writing bellum. So when you will see the diagram of brain, you will understand all these terms, but this is the basic classification of brain. So without wasting any time, we are just going to incorporate all these terms, all these parts of brain into our brain's diagram. So we are going to make the diagram of brain, right? So let's move ahead and begin with the diagram, brain's diagram, structure of brain we are going to draw basically, right? So let's understand that this is going to be an important diagram because whatever labelings you have done right now, right? So you are going to see all those things drawn over here, right? So these things which I am drawing, these are components of brain. These are, as you can see, these are the components of brain, right? So now this is the going to be the first layer, okay. Wait. So when we talk about brain, as I'm drawing this diagram, till then I'm making you revise some things so that you just keep on going through the things which we have just talked about. So we are drawing in this diagram, we are going to draw all the parts of midbrain. All the parts of midbrain mean all the parts of brain including midbrain, including forebrain, and see here you will find certain connective tissue membranes also, certain connective tissue membranes also, right? And these membranes they are called as connective tissue membranes. These membranes, they are called as connective tissue membranes, okay. And these connective tissue membranes, they are called as meninges. In plural form, they are going to be called as meninges, but in singular form they will be called as meninges in case of plural form. And when you talk about one connective tissue membrane, which is nothing else but a protective membrane, protective kind of a membrane, so there you can call it as menins, okay. So you will, or we will be writing all those things. So this is one connective tissue membrane which I have just drawn, right, like this. You have the many folds, and then this is pia mater, the innermost membrane I have drawn. And then we have another membrane also, and this membrane is called as arachnoid membrane. This membrane which I am drawing with the help of this purple color, this is representing the middle layer. This is representing the middle layer of meninges, middle meninge, right? And this can be called as arachnoid, okay. So this can be called as arachnoid, and the outermost layer which I am going to draw now, that layer will be considered as dura mater. So let me draw it now by this color. So the layer which you are able to see, which I am drawing, which is going to be considered as the outermost layer, this one, dark blue colored layer, okay. This is considered as dura mater. This is going to be considered as dura mater, okay. So as you can see, these layers are extending downwards also, means they are going to reach till spinal cord structure, till the spinal cord structure, or around it you can say. So are we just drawing the structure of brain? No, we are drawing the structure of brain plus spinal cord, both of them we are drawing, right? And here you can see one more structure which is formed like this, and this structure is called as cerebellum. Okay. So after this we have cranium, which is going to be present around this whole brain part, okay. So this is your cranium, right? This red colored structure which I am drawing is cranium, which is a protective bony box present around brain. It protects the brain from any kind of damage, right? And below to it we are going to have the vertebral column part. So till here we can say, till the brain part we will be having this cranium only, right? But then below that we are going to have vertebral column, okay. So basically this vertebral column protects spinal cord, and your cranium, it protects brain, okay. So this is going to be vertebral column part. So you must be getting confused because the diagram is not yet completed. Once it is completed, you will be clear with everything. Let me draw this diagram, this line first of all. So this was our dura mater, and then we have this cranium part, so we can show it like this, right? So this diagram appears to be complicated, but now let me tell you that this is going to be very easy once you understand it, because generally zoology diagrams, they appear to be difficult, but then when we discuss them in detail, when we label them and understand about them, they become much easy. So do not need to worry at all. Just you have to be patient for some time, because it is under process, and as soon as it gets completed, we will start labeling it, and we are already studying it one by one when we are discussing the things. So as you can see, these striation, red striation part, no, this is your cranium, okay, and then this vertebral column, it is getting extended like this and like this, so we can complete it as well. Okay, so now let's do one thing. Let's label it. This is the basic diagram of your brain. Okay, so this outermost part, let me start with that. So this outermost part with many striations, which you can see, this is called as cranium. This is the bony box which protects your brain and brain tissue, and it is present around the brain, as we can see. And if there are any shocks, any mechanical shocks, so brain is protected from this structure, so we can call it as cranium. Also we can call it as bony box also. Okay, so now the uppermost labeling which I have done is your cranium, which is called as bony box. Okay, moving ahead with the first connective tissue membrane, that is meninx, this dark blue colored one, it can be called as dura mater, and this is considered as the outermost layer, and it is also called as hard mother. So let me write it outermost, and you can listen to it, that what it is. It is made up of fibrous tissue. It is also called as hard mother, and it is there for the protection of brain. And then below it, this purple colored membrane, which is considered as the middle layer, it is called as arachnoid. This is considered as the middle layer, and the last layer, this is made up of delicate tissue, you can say that. And the last layer, which is called as this drawn in black color, this layer is called as pia mater. Pia mater is the innermost layer. It is also called as a soft mother, and it is in contact with the brain tissue, and it is vascular in nature. So all these three which you have named right now, so we can do like this, and these all are considered as meninges, which are nothing else but connective tissue membranes. And then we have these folds, you can see here, which I had drawn in this brain part. So these can be called as, these folds can be called as these folds can be called as fissures, sulci, gyri. So we can write that we have sulci, we have fissures, okay, sulci, fissures and gyri. Now you must be thinking that what they are. If singular form is there, we can call it sulcus, fissure, one fissure, and gyri, so singular form of for it will be gyrus. So sulci are small grooves present within the brain, fissures are large grooves, and these gyri, they are bulges like this between all these small and large grooves. So what is their function? They are present in the form of fold, and when you will open them, and they are a part of cerebrum, which is considered as the largest part of brain. So when you will open them, the area of the brain will increase by 2/3 part. So 2/3 of its surface area, we can say, will be increased, and that's how it will be able to accommodate more neurons. More the neurons, it has been said that more the neurons, more the IQ, that is intelligent quotient. It is like that. Okay, so here certain spaces are also present, and those spaces can be called as below dura mater. The space is called as subdural space. So I am labeling this space, okay, not the membrane. So this is subdural space, and it sub means below, and it is filled with your serous fluid. And similarly we have subarachnoid space, that means just below this arachnoid, that means somewhat this space, this is considered as subarachnoid space, and it is filled with CSF. Subarachnoid space is filled with CSF. CSF, we will be talking about it later. This is cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, and then we have this part, this red colored part, which is called as corpus callosum, and corpus callosum's anterior part is called as genu, which is curved, so you can call this part as genu. And the posterior part of it, that means somewhat this part of it, okay, it is considered as splenium, and this is not, these both are parts of your corpus callosum. So you have to remember the main name, so I can write it in this bracket. This is both of these, even they are part of corpus callosum. What is the function of corpus callosum? Corpus callosum is the structure, is a tract of nerve fibers which joins both of the cerebral hemispheres of your brain, because your cerebrum is divided into two cerebral hemispheres, this one, and they both are joined together like this. They are joined together with the help of this tract of nerve fibers, which is called by the name corpus callosum. Okay, and then we have this posteriorly we have one more thing present over here, and this is called as a pineal body, which is a gland which is responsible for maintaining our daily routine rhythm. You will be reading about it in endocrine system. And then this part, this maroon colored structure, this is your cerebellum. So first of all, let me write the name of it, which is cerebellum. Okay, so we need to understand, as we said, that our nervous system is formed of forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So our forebrain's first important major part is the largest part of it, and that can be called as cerebrum, right? And the second part of it can be considered as diencephalon, and diencephalon is composed of thalamus and hypothalamus. So this upper part, this can be called as thalamus. Okay, so we can write thalamus over here. And then this stalk-like structure, it is called as infundibulum, by which your pituitary gland is overhung from the hypothalamus. So before pointing out this, let us point out that structure which is present just below the thalamus part. So what we can do is, we are just labeling first of all the main component of ours, and that main component is our hypothalamus. So let me write first of all hypothalamus, and below that, as I told you, that this stalk-like structure, it was infundibulum, this one, and here this lower part is pituitary gland. So I'm not labeling it because there will be a lot of labelings, but you have to remember, right? This is infundibulum and this is pituitary gland, and about them we study also in our endocrine system chapter. So cerebrum we have, thalamus and hypothalamus we have, and this blue colored structure is limbic system, which is composed of amygdala and hippocampus. So if you remember, I just wrote in the last slide this amygdala here and this hippocampus, and they are together considered as a part of limbic system. So what I am doing is I am just labeling it as limbic system. Okay, and this whole part which we have drawn till now, or we have written till now, from cerebrum to limbic system, this can be considered as forebrain. So we have got the structure of forebrain or prosencephalon. Similarly, we have midbrain, and we said that midbrain is composed of two parts. One is corpora quadrigemina and one is pleura cerebri. So what we can do is, let us label that also. Here this part can be considered as corpora quadrigemina or corpora quadrigemina. Okay, so I am writing here corpora quadrigemina. Okay, and similarly quadrigemina, and similarly the lower part of it, that means somewhat this one, this can be considered as your crura cerebri. Okay, so that's how we can label it, crura cerebri. Okay, and both of them compose crura cerebri, and both of them they compose together your midbrains, right? So we can write it as midbrain. So we have got midbrain also now. Okay, and similarly we can label the parts of hindbrain also. So first of all, let me write it as midbrain. Okay, so there should be no confusion now about forebrain and midbrain. And then we have another part, this cerebellum, one part, and then we have pons. So let me pick one color to represent it, right? So this part, right, this purple part which you are able to see, we can call it as pons varoli, and below it you are going to have medulla. Okay, so let me pick this color, and like this we are going to have the medulla part, and below it the spinal cord part, like this. Okay, so you can see that this part which I am shading with black color, this is your medulla part. So we can write it as medulla, and the below part of it will be considered as spinal cord. So first of all, this is your hind brain. This is hind brain. Okay, and below it, that is your this yellow part. This yellow part which you can see over here. Right? This is your spinal cord. This is your spinal cord. So let us enhance the boundaries of it so that it appears more clear to you, like this. Okay, so this is your complete diagram of brain. What are you thinking more about it? Let's complete it now. Now it's labeling, right? We are done. So this is your spinal cord, this part of it. So I'm not labeling it with yellow color, it won't be visible. Spinal cord is protected by a structure, this one, and this structure is called as vertebral column. And here one more space you will find, and that space is called as epidural space. You can see here when I had drawn this cranium, I didn't leave any space, but here I have left this space now, and this space is known as epidural space, which is outside durameter. So epidural space is made up of adipose tissue, and it is also protecting the structure of the CNS, that is the structure around spinal cord. Okay, and this canal which is present in the center, this canal is called as central canal. The canal of spinal cord is called as central canal, and this end point of your spinal cord, this is known as conus medullaris. Okay, and this part which is joining them, here we can draw it with red color. This part, this is called as phylum terminale, because this is the last part of terminal part of spinal cord where it is ending, and this surrounding area, this constitutes neural canal. So this is the diagram which has represented all the things regarding your CNS. So this diagram can be named as structure of brain and spinal cord. Structure of brain and spinal cord, right? Spinal cord. Okay, so you have to revise it very carefully, and you have to learn all the labelings. But now we are moving ahead because we are done with this diagram, so you can have a final look to it. We have drawn all the things, that is forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain, everything with all the complete labeling. So there were certain things over here which I talked about, but I was just telling you about them, we talked about certain meninges, and meninges I have already told you that in singular form you can call it menings, and they are 3 in number, and they are nothing else but connective tissue membranes. Menings you can call them. And if you are talking about singular form, and these are nothing else but they are connective tissue membranes, and all 3 names are there in the diagram. So we have talked about them. Then we also talked about CSF, and if you want to know about CSF, so this is cerebrospinal fluid, and it is secreted by anterior and posterior choroid plexus. Plexus is a kind of bundle of nerve fibers, you can say. And when we talk about the composition of CSF, then we can say that it consists of glucose, chloride, then we have water, we have proteins. So all this it is made up of. And when we talk about its functions, so functions are, it acts as a shock absorber. This is the most important function. So in a way it is protecting the brain from any kind of shocks, right? And the other functions are, it provides buoyancy to the brain. Being a fluid, it helps in the excretion of the wastes there, and it also provides nourishment to the brain. So that's how these are the main functions of CSF. Once you can write this, and another you can write nourishment also. Okay, then we say that what can be the overall functions of brain, if we have been asked this question, that overall functions of brain. So overall functions of brain include, first is voluntary and involuntary movements. Voluntary means which are under your control, and involuntary means which are not into your control. So voluntary and involuntary movements, we can say. Okay, and then we have another function as thermoregulation. So it helps to regulate the temperature of our body, so we can say thermoregulation. Then we have, it helps to balance or control hunger and thirst. It is responsible for our behavioral regulation, so we can write that also, behavioral regulation, or human behavioral regulation, right? Then we have then it has its endocrine functions as well. how and what, you will understand that in the chapter in which you will be studying about endocrine glands. So it has certain endocrine functions as well. Okay, and endocrine functions. Then these are certain functions including maintenance of 24 o'clock rhythm, which is also called by many names: biological rhythm, daily rhythm, all these things, all these names you can give to it. So sleep wake cycle, you can call it. 24 o'clock rhythm also is maintained with the help of brain. Okay, so these all are different functions of brain. But as we are studying CNS, so first component which we are going to pick is going to be forebrain. And as I told you, the first component of forebrain is cerebrum. Cerebrum. So you can write here cerebrum, and cerebrum is considered as largest part of brain. Largest part of brain. Okay, and it is composed of two cerebral hemispheres, which I told you are joined by the help of corpus callosum. And it has, a cerebrum has many lobes also, two each. And that is, first lobe is frontal lobe, and they are two in number. And this frontal lobe is responsible, these lobes we are going to talk about. Okay, so these are two frontal lobes, and now don't get confused with bone. You have one frontal bone, then but you have two frontal lobes in your forebrain. So lobes are always two in number, whichever lobe you talk about. So these lobes, they are responsible for your creative ideas, whatever creative ideas you get, your intellectual ability, your voluntary muscular activities, they are also responsible for that. So we can write voluntary motor activities. Whenever we write motor term, it always means it is relevant to some kind of movement. Okay, and now then we say that second lobe can be considered as parietal lobe. And parietal lobe, they are also two in number. And this one is parietal lobe and this one is parietal lobe. They are responsible for many sensations, receival of sensations like smell, touch, pain, etc. And all sequential activities. All sequential activities means like reading a clock, that you know that after 12, 5, 12, 10, 12, 15, this way time will go ahead. And then reading a map, getting ready for going to your office or to your school. One by one you perform those activities, your daily routine activities, and you don't have to recall them. You don't have to sit and you don't have to just think about them, and that now I have to do this, now I have to do this another activity. They are just into you, and you just keep on going on doing them. So keep on doing them without thinking much. So these kind of sequential activities, they like reading a map, reading a clock, getting ready, dressing yourself, these are all these are all under the control of parietal lobes. And then we have temporal lobes. Temporal lobes are present at the lower part of the cranial cavity, right? Cerebrum, like this and this, and they are responsible for sound, for the interpretation of sound, as you know, right? Interpretation of sound. And similarly, you have occipital lobes, two occipital lobes. Okay, so we can write the fourth type, that is your occipital lobes, and they are two in number, and they are responsible for vision, right? So that's how they are different lobes. These are two occipital lobes. Okay, so when you draw a diagram like this showing all these lobes, this is your brain, and here certain areas you can find. These are your fold sulci, Fisher's gyri, which I told you. Here general motor area, general this is your, for example, this is your general motor area, this is your general sensory area. So we can write that this is general motor area. Okay, this is general sensory area. We have this is your frontal lobe, so you can see this frontal lobe, and as I told you, it is responsible for your creative ideas, muscular motor activities. This is your parietal lobe, so parietal lobe is responsible for smell, touch, right? And this is your temporal lobe. Okay, so we can write here temporal lobe, so hearing it is responsible for, and this lobe is called as occipital lobe, so we can write its name as occipital lobe, and here you can write those sensations also. For example, you can write here speech, because whatever we are speaking after thinking, we are doing that. It is responsible for smell, it is responsible for hearing, audition you can write. Okay, you can write here vision. So all these are different sensations which they receive, or which they are responsible for those activities. And here certain association areas you will find. For example, this is premotor area, premotor speech area, or premotor area you can call it, this one. So we can write here premotor area, and similarly we have association areas also. So these association areas, they help to maintain the balance among all these activities. So this was the diagram of your brain only, showing different folds and different activities, right? And when we talk about its first part, when we talk about the cortex part, so the outer part of brain is called as cortex, as you know, and this cortex is divided into two parts. One is white matter and another is gray matter. So gray matter is present outside. Gray matter is more in amount or concentration, you can say, and white matter is the inner matter. White matter is made up of glistening white myelinated axons, and gray matter is composed of cell bodies. So this is present in outer part, and this is present in inner part. Because of the presence of these white glistening myelinated fibers, this is called as white matter. Okay, and then another one is your gray matter, and gray matter consists of approximately 10% neurons of your whole nervous system, right? And this cortex, this is made up of 6 layers, each layer approximately 2 to 4 millimeters thick, and they consist of billions of neurons over here. So as I told you that more the neurons, more the IQ or intelligent quotient, we can say. And when we talk about certain things like cell bodies, when we talk about, so these cell bodies, when they are present in CNS, they are called by the name nucleus, and in case of plural form, they can be called as nuclei. And cell bodies in case of PNS, they are called by the term ganglia. Ganglia is the plural form and ganglion is the singular form, but here you will put one exception, and that is your basal ganglia, which is a part of central nervous system, which I will be explaining you just now after this. So this is considered into an exception. And when we talk about nerves, so nerves in CNS, they are called by the name tract, as we said that tract of nerve fibers is called as corpus callosum, and nerves in PNS, they are called as nerve fibers. I should rather write nerve fibers in CNS, they are called as tract, and nerve fibers in PNS, they are called as nerve. So that's how cranial and spinal nerves you read in your PNS only, which we will be covering in the next lecture. Okay, and then when we talk about this basal ganglia, as the name suggests, it is present at the they are present at the base of the cortex. Okay, and these are nothing else but a collection of subcortical nuclei. I said that it is considered, or they are considered as collection of subcortical nuclei. Subcortical means below cortex. Subcortical nuclei. Now don't get confused. Nuclei are your neurons only, because neuron is considered as the main part of nervous system, and you can say that it is the center of the nervous system, and you know that nucleus is also present in the center of the nervous system. That's how they have called neurons as nuclei only. So don't get confused, nuclei are neurons only. Okay, so neurons we can write so that you do not have any kind of confusion. At base of cortex they are present, and the largest out of them is corpus striatum. The largest out of them is considered as largest nucleus or neuron is considered. Those functions which we are, those movements which we are doing since long ages, that means eating by our hand, moving by our legs, there is no change in those kind of movements. So these are certain traditional movements, and they can be called as stereotyped movements, and the function of other ganglia is just balancing them, making them fast or slow, like fast or slow writing, fast or slow like cycling, fast or slow riding. All these can be the functions of other ganglia. Okay, so when we talk about the areas of your cerebral cortex, so we name about two kind of areas. Okay, areas of cerebral cortex include three areas. First is sensory areas, so you know the function of sensory areas. Another is motor areas for your movement, and the third one, which are present in maximum number, you can say, or maximum area they cover. These are association areas, and association areas also include three. They help in intersensory communications. Intersensory communication means if I am writing, I am speaking also, and if you would have been in front of me and you were speaking, you would have speaking something, so I would have been listening to you also. So basically I can perform many activities together, like speaking, like listening, like watching, hearing, smell. All these I can that means a human can do together, and this is because of the presence of your association areas. And then it also helps in your memory, and also helps in communication. Okay, so this is how all these areas they work. And when we talk about another components of forebrain, and that is your forebrain, that is thalamus and hypothalamus and many more parts. Those parts, what we will do is we will include their thalamus. Okay, so you can write here thalamus, and thalamus is considered as relay center. You can call it gatekeeper of your brain. Why? Because whatever sensory and motor signals pass through your brain, they have to pass through thalamus. As whenever a new person tries to come inside a building where a guard is doing his or her duty, so there he has to sign before getting in, and he has to sign or do his signatures while coming out, so that there is a data entry or there is a record of it. So similarly, thalamus, it helps to whatever signals, motor and sensory signals, they pass through thalamus. And the sensory signals, while entering they pass through thalamus, and the motor signals, whenever they are coming out, they also pass through thalamus. So that's how it controls motor and sensory signaling. So it is also called as gatekeeper of your brain. Okay, controls sensory and motor signaling, right? And similarly, just below it, you have one more very important part of your forebrain, that is called as hypothalamus, but today we don't have enough time to discuss it, so we will be dealing it in the next lecture. Till now, in this lecture, what we have covered a very important topic, a very important diagram we had made, which was of your which was a structure of brain and spinal cord, and some things about it, few things about it, right? So we will be meeting just very soon to cover the rest of the things about CNS and PNS. Okay, so till then, revise it and practice the diagram and learn all the labelings. Okay, thank you.